You're welcome to my channel. I want to speak on system development lifecycle and the IS auditor's concerns. System development is a very important process in any organization. And when an organization wants to get an application or a software, there are basically two ways to do that. Is either you buy or you develop in-house. And a lot of factors have to be considered before you decide to make a choice. And so we'll look at the waterfall model and see the various stages that ideally you expect management to go through before arriving an application that can add the best value to the organization. Okay, so the first phase of the system development life cycle is what is called the feasibility study stage. Now, at that stage, that is where we decide whether we even have a problem, because we might not have a problem. Okay, we've seen situations whereby people just make orders for application or for software acquisition just for the sake of buying the software, not because there is a real need. Okay, so the auditor should be concerned about the adequacy of the business case that was developed for the project. So is there actually a problem? What problem are we trying to solve with the acquisition or the development of the software? So whoever is the project sponsor must develop a very detailed business case and present it before management. Okay, showing the quantitative benefits and the qualitative benefits that the organization is going to obtain for implementing that particular application. And of course, that's why we stuck in domain 2 of the CISA syllabus, that the board should be able to have enough knowledge, okay, to question or to query or to challenge the business case being presented by the project sponsor. Kobe 2019 also emphasizes this fact that we need to be able to separate governance from management so that the board of directors can be able to have a proper oversight over IT strategic decisions. Okay, so we need the project sponsor must develop a business case that will show the justification for that particular project. Now, so the job of the IS auditor basically at this first phase is to determine that there is a documented business case and that business case is adequate and that the business case has been presented before the relevant authorities and there's an approval for that business case. So we'll move to the second stage of SDLC, which is the requirements definition stage. Now, having gotten approval for the project to kickstart, the business analyst, the system analyst in the organization working with the programmers will now start consulting the stakeholders, the users, the end users, department, to be able to get the requirements, what they need, all right, what problem were they facing in the old system, all right, and what solutions or outcomes do they need now. Okay, so it is very important that the people collecting the requirements gather requirements from as many stakeholders as possible. So all the relevant stakeholders must be captured in the requirements. All right. If this is not done, what is called scope creep is what is going to happen. So scope creep means that requirements are changing in the middle of the project. So maybe we have already passed requirement definition, we have moved to design, or we have moved to development, or we have even moved to the life environment before somebody is now realizing, oh, there is this particular module that we forgot to tell you, and that is could be very, very discouraging. And definitely it will mean more time lost. It will mean more financial commitment for the organization. So one way to address scope creep is through baselining, or what is also called freeze point. So management need to have a freeze point at a particular point in time. You cannot add or remove from the requirements unless you get an approval. Okay, so that means once that freeze point or baseline has passed, you cannot change the requirement again without getting approval, and that means you have to expose yourself to management queries. So that may make people to sit up and give and try to submit all the information required before the freeze point is established. Okay, so like I said, stakeholder engagement is very key here at the requirement definition stage. So the auditor should be concerned about scope creep. The auditor should be concerned about the adequacy of the stakeholders being engaged. Then again, the auditor should be concerned about control requirements, because we could be carried away with functional requirements, but the application controls, all right, may be ignored. So it is at this point also that we start gathering the requirements for the controls in the application. So if we move from requirement definition and we are developing in-house, we go to design stage. So design stage is where the programmers use the flowcharts, algorithm, data flow diagrams, and structural designs to be able to come up with a design of the application. So it's the design of the application that the programmers are going to use as a basis for coding for the development of the application. So the concern of the IS auditor here is that the requirement should translate into design. So you want to be sure that all the requirements of the users are being captured, in the design of the application. You also want to be convinced and get evidence that application controls have been designed into the application. Then you also want to cite test design. Since you have already started designing the application, you can also start designing tests at this stage. So the auditors should also cite evidence of the test designs. So after designing the application, we move to the test environment to do the actual coding of the application. So there are many integrated development environments now that programmers can use. Okay, some of them are even using platform as a service. So the auditor should be concerned, because this is the core of system development. So you want to look at the experience of the coders. All right, you want to look at whether they have the review systems, or can somebody just develop the application from beginning to the end and is the same person that will push it to the live environment. So you want to check for the level of review they have, the supervisory reviews, PR reviews, and so on, that they have over the codes as a form of quality assurance. So it's also important that the test environment is separated from the live environment. So you don't want people to be doing software testing or software coding in the live environment. So the auditor should be concerned about the system testing that is also done, the adequacy of system testing, security testing, stress testing, volume testing, regression testing, alpha testing, beta testing. So there are lots of testing that are done for various reasons in the test environment. The auditor wants to cite the documentations of those tests and the results. Okay, then towards the end of the application development, of course, there will be, before you go live, you want to see the quality assurance evidence that quality assurance tests were performed. You want to see evidence that user acceptance testing were performed. So the quality assurance testing will be more of technical testing done by IT. The user assurance testing will be done by the end users to gain assurance that the system is actually ready and can meet user requirements. So the auditor will also want to check the methodologies that are being used. Okay, the programming methodologies are adopted. Okay, are they using prototyping? Are they using waterfall? Are they using agile? All right, so you want to also cite evidence to document the methodologies being used. You want to cite the controls over the integrated development environment. For example, access controls. Can anybody just sign in, to the IDE to update, to delete, to modify codes? So that is a serious concern for the IS auditor. Okay, I remember I did an audit around this area recently, and I have to tell the chief programmer to demonstrate for me the two-factor authentication they use over the integrated development environment, because I asked what controls do you have. He said, okay, they are using two-factor authentication. Of course, in audit, we don't take oral evidence. So I told him, okay, demonstrate it, and he did that successfully. Okay, so then, of course, change management. So right in the test environment, I've talked about scope creep, that may be a need to do code rework and the rest. So you want to see evidence that there were approvers, okay, documentation of approvers, and the documentation of actual work done while in the test environment. So things also like debugging, removal of errors, use of case tools, computer assisted system engineering tools. So you want to also see controls over those case tools also. So these are the concerns that the auditor should have while reviewing the development phase. Okay, so that is if we are developing in-house. What about if we want to buy? If we are not developing the software in-house, we want to buy off the shelf. Okay, so the key factor here is request for proposal. So the management has to prepare a request for proposal detailing the problems they are trying to solve with the application they are requesting for. Okay, so of course they will list the problem they are trying to solve. They will also list some of the requirements they expect the vendor to meet, maybe things like years of experience, financial guarantee, references from existing customers, and so on. Okay, so the auditor want to confirm the adequacy of the request for proposal. You also want to confirm that the request for proposal was distributed according to company policy. Okay, there are some organizations, they already have a pool of vendors in their database. Okay, and they don't go outside that. So that is their own policy. Okay, as some organizations, they see have, they still may want to expose the RFP to as many vendors as possible. So as auditor, you also want to confirm how did this, looking at the responses of the vendors to the request for proposal, you want to look at the factors used to qualify or to disqualify the responses of the vendors. So after some of those vendors have been selected, maybe 3 or 5 of them, they can be invited over to come and demonstrate, or what is called proof of concept. So they need to come and demonstrate the application of their software to meet the needs of the organization. It's also important that the IS auditor is in such a meeting, such a demonstration, to see how the vendor software can meet the user requirements. Okay, so there are some concerns in proof of concepts. Okay, you want to ensure that if you are going to give your data to the vendor, the data must be sanitized. So you need to remove confidential information from your live data that you may want to give the vendor. Then, of course, you don't know the background of the vendor. They will have hacking background. So you want to use network segmentation. Okay, so segment the vendor network or subnetwork into a guest network, so that they will not have access to your production network. So all these are concerns the auditor should have when you are about to pick a vendor and a software. Okay, so the next stage is configuration. So if you are buying after you have selected and bought the application, so you need to configure the application looking at your business needs and looking at your security needs. Okay, so when you look at a banking software or an accounting software, Sage as an accounting software in company A is not Sage as an accounting software in company B. Why? Because maybe difference in size, difference in currencies, all right, difference in maybe clients. Okay, difference in organizational structure, difference in nomenclature, okay, difference in security requirements, perhaps difference in regulatory requirements, maybe even difference in accounting standards being used. Okay, so all these concerns will be addressed during configuration, and the auditor needs to look at the configuration item and look at the baseline configuration, and ensure that that baseline configuration does not change without the process going through change management. Okay, so there need to be, somebody need to justify why there is a need to modify the configuration, and show the impact of that change on the system. Um, Present that to management for approval. And of course, once the change is approved, it is better to first do the configuration change in the test environment to see the impact. That's what we call regression testing, before you now implement that configuration change in the live environment. And of course, the documentation of the change must be kept, okay, so that in the future we can refer to the approvers and what was done if need be. Then a lot of organizations now are now investing in configuration monitoring tools, so that if the configuration is altered without approval, there could be a way to alert the people in security or in controls, so that they will be aware and quickly follow up to determine who did the configuration change and for what purpose. Okay, so the next stage, after configuration, if you are buying and development, if you are developing in-house, is you now go live implementation. So this is very, very important. A lot of problems often happen here. I'm privileged to have been through to go live. I've done 2 cutovers in my banking experience, and they are quite challenges. It's a very interesting period in the life of any organization, especially when you are doing implementation for a core business application. It's always very interesting. It's a time for teaming and bonding. It's a time for integration of business and IT units. Okay, you will see governance of enterprise IT in full display. Okay, but if it is not well managed, it's also an opportunity for fraud. Okay, is an opportunity for fraud. It can create availability challenges. Okay, so in the banking sector, for example, so you just see that business applications are down. Customers are coming, they are getting disappointed. Okay, it's even myself, I've been a victim of that in another bank. Okay, the application was down for 2 days, and I'm sure 48 hours can never be the recovery time objective of any bank in the world. Okay, no matter how small. Okay, that's excessive. So the IT people and the business people should be able to see ahead the risk that cutovers are going to create for them. So they need to go into detail on how these risks are going to manage. And the worst case scenario should also be imagined, that it's possible that it's going to be a flop. So you have to provide for what we call, you know, a fallback scenario, so that you don't completely cut the bridge. So keep the legacy system ready to go, just in case it has happened before, even in Nigeria. So you need, if there is a need for you to go back to the old application, you should be ready to do that until the system, you give it a try again. So there are so many cutover strategy you can use. You can do parallel cutover, you can do phased cutover, you can do direct cutover. Direct cutover is the one that is the most risky, because it's just you're using old system on Friday, then on Monday you start using the new system. So you can't use that direct cutover for if an extremely critical application, because of inherent challenges. Okay, so parallel cutover, you're using the old and the new together for some time. before you drop the old completely. Then in the phase cutover, you are introducing the new bit by bit, module by module, okay, until the old software is completely retired. Okay, so that is ideal when you are implementing applications that are very complex. Okay, so you can migrate them in bits or in phases. Data migration could also be a serious challenge. So you can have cases of data corruption, you can have cases of data manipulation, especially when people know that you are going to cut over. Okay, so people can tamper with data. A lot of frauds will occur because they know that you are moving the data from the old to the new. And because there may be so many challenges with data, there are many issues that will be overlooked. I'm talking from experience. Okay, management may not be able to investigate every case of data errors. So some of them will be overlooked, and if care is not taken, among those issues that are going to be overlooked will be serious frauds and irregularities. So management, IT management, and IS audit and IS control and IT risk management, they need to really sit together and formulate a way to be able to confirm the integrity of data conversion, the completeness of data conversion. So all these are concerns of the IS auditor during the go live phase. Okay, so after we have gone live and the system has stabilized 6 months, 1 year, all right, we want to now go for post implementation. Okay, unless I forget, in the go live phase 2, you also want to check that there is a help desk. Okay, so there are some people that are being super trained, okay, maybe by the vendor itself. So they cannot constitute a ring of train the trainers. So when the general users are having problems, they should know the email to send issues to, they should know the numbers to call, so that those guys that have been super trained, all right, will now be able to address those concerns, okay, and resolve it on a timely basis. So at the end of the day, everybody is happy. We have a new system, we've stabilized. Then we can do post-implementation review. So post-implementation review basically is you create a team to now look at the software, the business case. Are we really achieving what we have been told we are going to achieve? Okay, in the project feasibility study stage. The project sponsor could see anything. The people that are marketing the software could give you a manner of post. So it is at the post implementation stage that you will actually see the implementation, whether you're actually gaining value for the money spent, okay, on the implementation. So you want to check the business case, the quantitative benefit, the qualitative benefits, whether they are being achieved. Okay, so those are actually your primary concerns, okay, in post-implementation review. Then you also want to check lessons learned, okay, in every project. Okay, software development or software acquisition is a project, so there will always be lessons learned. Maybe the use of resources, deployment of resources, gaps in training needs for the organization. So all those will also be reviewed and documented. Okay, then you also look at outstanding issues. Maybe there are some fallout of implementation that have not been taken care of. Okay, for example, there may still be some integration issues with existing enterprise architecture. All right, there may still be some training needs that have not yet been addressed. Okay, there may be a need to also maybe review the contract with the vendor, okay, based on new realities. So those outstanding issues will also be documented during the post-implementation review. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this video. You can subscribe to my channel for more video. Thank you.